All right, let's talk about one of the most fundamental skills for any Node.js developer, getting your code organized with modules. We're going to go from that one giant, messy file to code that's clean, professional, and ready to scale.
Okay, so let's just dive right in. We've all been there, right? Staring at a single massive file of code that's just become this tangled web. You can't find anything, debugging is a total nightmare, and just trying to maintain it is a real headache.
And look, this isn't just about being messy. As your projects get bigger, that single file approach becomes a massive roadblock. It makes working with a team almost impossible. It seriously increases the risk of bugs, and it just slows everything down. Structure isn't just about being tidy, it's about being effective.
So what's the solution? Well, it's splitting your code into multiple files. And in the world of Node.js, each of these files is called a module. So if you have an app.js and an xyz.js, Node doesn't see them as one program. It sees them as two totally distinct, separate modules.
Okay, so if every single file is its own little private world, how in the world do we get them to talk to each other? How do we share functions and variables and all that good stuff between them?
Well, Node gives us a built-in function for this called require. You can basically think of it as the tool that lets you pull one file into another. It's really the first step in connecting all these separate worlds so they can work together as one cohesive application. But, and this is a big but, just using require isn't the whole story. And this brings us to a crucial secret that, honestly, trips up a lot of developers. So you're going to want to pay close attention to this next part. So, you've done everything right so far. You've split your code into nice, clean files. You've used require to link them up, so you should be able to just call any function from that other file now, shouldn't you? It just makes sense that it would work.
And the answer, surprisingly, is no. It won't work. And the reason why is probably the single most important concept we're going to cover. This isn't a bug. It's a fundamental, intentional design feature of Node.js.
See? It's a feature. Modules are specifically designed to be private to protect their code. This prevents variables and functions from accidentally leaking out and causing all sorts of conflicts. Think of each module like a room with a locked door. Using require lets you know the room exists, but it doesn't actually unlock the door for you.
So obviously we need a key to unlock that door, right? We need a way to explicitly say what we're willing to share with the outside world. And in Node.js, that key is module.exports.
It's really just a simple two-step handshake. In the file where your code lives, you have to explicitly export what you want to share. Then in the file that needs it, you use require to import what was made available. You have to do both. One side offers, the other accepts. That's how it works.
Okay, so the system we've just been talking about with require and module.exports, that's called CommonJS. It was the original module system in Node. But times have changed, and there's a more modern system you absolutely need to have on your radar.
So, what's the big deal? Well, it really comes down to efficiency and safety. CommonJS loads your files one after the other, which can slow things down. But ES modules, or ESM, can load them at the same time, which can make your apps start up way faster. Plus, ES modules run in strict mode by default, which is kind of like having a built-in proofreader that helps you catch common coding mistakes before they become problems.
And this really shows why this all matters. ES modules aren't just a different way to type import. They are the future of the entire Node.js ecosystem. The whole industry is moving in this direction, so getting comfortable with it now is a really smart move.
All right, so you've got the basics down. But what happens when your project grows from just a few files to dozens, maybe even hundreds? Well, that's when you need some professional patterns to keep all that complexity under control.
The first and most common pattern is something you'll probably start doing naturally, just using folders to group related files. Instead of one long, flat list of files, you create a nested structure. This immediately makes your code so much easier to find and to understand.
So for example, here we've created a calculate folder to hold all of our math functions. This keeps the main project folder clean, and it bundles all that related logic together into its own, bigger, more cohesive module. It just makes sense.
Now, if you want to take that a step further, there's an even cleaner pattern that uses a special file named index.js. This little file can act as a public front door for an entire folder of modules.
Now, here's the brilliant part. That index.js file can import the code from sum.js and multiply.js and then export it all from that one central place. This means your app.js file can just require the calculate folder itself, instead of having to know about every single file inside. It's an incredibly clean and scalable way to build.
So let's bring this all home.
If you only remember one thing from this entire explainer, it should be this core philosophy, the very idea of what a module actually is.
Let that sink in for a second. It's not just a file. It's a private, organized collection of code. When you start thinking this way, it will fundamentally change how you build your applications, for the better.
So let's quickly recap the essentials. First, your modules are private until you say otherwise. You have to explicitly export what you want to share. Second, as your project is bigger, use folders to group your code. That's your first step to a pro-level architecture. And finally, start getting your hands dirty with ES modules, because that's clearly where JavaScript is headed.
You now have the keys to writing clean, professional, and scalable Node.js apps. That chaos of the single giant file is a thing of the past. So the only real question left is, what amazing project are you going to build first?